Patrick, welcome.
Thank you, Craig.
Excellent start. Look, folks, you have no idea what's gone into trying to get this thing to work, but we finally got it working. We're here, SHOT Show 2024, and we wanted to talk about gun rights community. Now, because you and I have talked, you and I have known each other for years. You know that right now the perception is that, firearms are. It's one of it's the number one cause of death for young black males, right? A lot of people see gun violence as a number one issue in our community. And in many cases, people want to blame the gun. And so what I wanted to do was sit down and talk with some folks who are in the industry and kind of get your perspectives, just to let folks know that there's more than one perspective on this particular issue. So before we get started, do me a favor and just tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
All right, Patrick Collins from thegunfood.com. We could be your ammunition source if you would like. We sell ammunition all to lower 48 states. I've been in the industry for probably about 15 years now, whether it was competitive shooting, all the way up through the political as well as instructing. And here we are now, and I'm a business now.
Excellent. So how did you get into the business?
So I started off competitive shooting. I went to a range with a coworker of mine that was a competitive shooter in the super senior division. And he said, "Hey, you're a pretty decent shot. Why don't you come over to this range on this day?" So I showed up, and believe it or not, I was spotted with Jerry Mitchellek and Lena,
who, real quick now, a lot of the folks who are watching this this is for folks who are not normally in the firearms industry or firearms culture. So let the folks know who Jerry is.
Jerry is probably one of the most recognized firearms shooter in the modern age. Jerry has world records galore. I think he's up to like 14 or 15 now, maybe even 17. And he's just an overall awesome guy. And at the time I was watching videos of him, and he was my partner in the squad that I was in. And we had a squad of 8, and him and Lena were in my squad.
Excellent. Okay. How old were you when you got into when you got into firearms, and then when you actually got into the business of firearms instructing and what?
So I was relatively young. I believe I was in my lower 30s when I first started off in the firearms industry. I forget the exact age, and I have to do some math for that. But essentially, I was in my lower 30s. And prior to that, I'm originally from Boston. So we had a very anti-2A, anti-gun ownership culture. So I had to break through that when I moved down to Georgia. Yeah.
What did that look like when you say anti-2A or anti-gun or anti-Second Amendment culture? Tell me a little bit about what that looked like.
So, I mean, in the environment that you're brought into, Massachusetts is a very anti-2A environment. School systems, they don't talk about firearms. They don't talk about firearm safety. In fact, they talk negative about firearms. Like, oh, look at all these other cities that are horrible. And Boston's not really all that great when it comes to firearms and violence in general, violent crimes, because it still happens. Doesn't matter if you take the gun out, or even if you pretty much prevent anybody from owning a firearm, criminals will still be criminals.
Well, and that's a serious thing. I mean, we talk about the fact that, we talk about the fact that young black males do tend more likely to be victims, but who are the ones who are also involved in those shootings? I mean, who are the number one, I'd say, the shooters of young black men?
Yeah. Yes, black people in general are typically more of the victims, and a lot of it has to deal with the economic disparity between, as well as just the culture and the mindset of devaluing each other. And that's a big thing in the black communities that, as a firearms owner, we try to always push that, hey, value life, avoid the conflict, avoid debate. And this is not really, you don't have to fight. Just enjoy life while you're here.
What do you say to someone who says, you know what, we need to restrict the types of firearms that people are able to buy. So, for example, in California, we have this thing called the not unsafe handgun roster, where the government gets to say what firearms, what handguns that someone gets to own, or anything like, for example, the ban on center fire semi-automatic rifles. Otherwise, they like to, they kind of call them assault weapons bans. What do you say to someone who believes that that's the way to go in order to, reduce gun violence?
Well, unfortunately, when there is violence that occurs with a firearm, it's with a firearm, which is an object. It's a tool. A lot of these states and legislations are trying to essentially ban a certain particular type of tool. But in general, when a tool is used in a violent crime, it doesn't matter what type of tool it is. Just like, what kills most families out there as far as road conditions? It's actually minivans. So why would we ban a certain type of vehicle or a certain type of tool when it comes to victims of violence?
That's a good question. It's a tool. In other words, we're talking about blaming an inanimate object. I always use the joke. I always say, I could put my firearms, I could take them and I could put them down on the table. I could, put all the alcohol out there on the table. I could yell at them. I could abuse them. And still, those firearms by themselves will never commit one act of violence.
That's absolutely right.
Right? They won't do any harm to anyone. So then the question becomes, how do we address the issue of gun violence?
Yeah. Yeah, I think education is the most important thing, where we need to value folks' lives. The more educated that we have in our society, especially at the younger ages when folks are sponges, these kids are sponges. If we teach them that, hey, value life, value each other, and conflict resolution, we'd be a much better society. And in fact, to be honest with you, when I was growing up, one of the occupations that everybody wanted was either be in the military or a police officer. Nowadays, they push you so far away from that, it's not even funny.
If someone were considering thinking about getting into, at least trying, firearms, how would you suggest they go about doing it?
Well, first of all, you got to figure out the reason why. If it's just a curiosity matter, find a certified instructor, take it to the range, or just enjoy going to a range with a person that supports the 2A. And then from there, as you start to develop the interest, that's when you start building, okay, these are the different types of firearms, and essentially grow them, not just throw a firearm at them and say, hey, just use this when you're upset or when you have a conflict that you're trying to resolve. That's not the case.
Okay. How can folks find you, learn more about your business if they want to do business with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hit us up at thegunfood.com. We sell ammunition to all the 48 states. Depending on your state, there's some restrictions with that. And we are here to help you out.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir.
All
Enjoy
right.
the rest of your show.
All right.